If you guys haven't already met me in my previous webinars, I've been an agent here at Hilton Hyland for the last 11 years. I've been doing real estate just out of college since 2006, and I am a SoCal native, so I am very familiar with the area. And let's get right into it. So first, we're going to talk about the pros of putting your house on the market right now. Okay, and the most obvious one is that there's less inventory right now on the market than there was before. Before March 16th, which is the shutdown day, there was already a lack of inventory, which is what drove prices up year over year over the last decade. Okay, and right now we're seeing much less inventory. If you look at the right, there's a graph that I put there by Mike Delpreet. He's a real estate statistician, and he keeps track of all these numbers. And if you saw some of my previous webinars, I discussed this in great detail about how we're seeing a decline of new listings of about 60% after the shutdown. That lasted about 2 to 3 weeks, and now we're back up to almost normal levels of new listings compared to last year. So there's even though there's normal levels of new listings coming on the market, if you track all the listings that haven't come on the market compared to last year over the last 3 months since the shutdown, there's a lot less inventory on the market. So what does that mean for you as the seller? If you're planning on putting your house on the market right now, and usually there's about 10 houses in your area that are on the market, right now you're probably seeing 60% less houses on the market. So you're only seeing about 4 houses on the market. So if there's a group of 10 buyers out there looking before COVID-19 and they only have 4 houses to look at, what does that mean? That means your house is going to sell faster and it's going to sell for more money, right? And so that's what we're kind of seeing in some of the markets is we're seeing that the days on market for sold listings is actually a little bit less than it was last year in some of the markets. And we're starting to see what's called a V-shaped recovery. I'm sure you've heard of that on the news, which is good. Another pro of selling your house on the market right now, of putting your house on the market right now, is that interest rates are really, really low, right? Obviously, you might say, oh, this is good for buyers. How is that going to affect me as the seller? Well, if the interest rates go down, that means prices are going to go up because the buying power is higher. If you look at my example right here, if you're qualified, your payment's about $42.16 of a $1 million mortgage at 3%. If that rate goes up 1% up to 4%, which even at 4%, I would say to a buyer, you should buy now because rates are really low. If it goes up just 1 point, that payment just for the mortgage, not property tax or insurance, has gone up about $500 up to $477 a month. What how much is that in savings for a buyer? You're looking at almost $6,700 a year in savings, and about $200,000 a year. Over the course of 30 years, right? So those are huge savings. If you're a buyer looking right now, I would say you need to start looking ASAP, and you need to find a house ASAP. And like I said before, that increases the buying power. In this scenario here, in my example, the interest rate from 4 to 3 has increased the buying power of about 10%. So if you're looking at $1 million, now you can buy up to 1.1. All right. Another pro is that there's no open houses. The reason why a lot of people are taking their house off the market right now is obviously there's a risk of getting infected. You don't want a bunch of people in your houses. You don't know where they've been. You don't know if they've been infected, and so you don't want to run that risk, right? So one of the pros is that you're not going to have any open houses because they're not allowed, right? No Sunday open houses are allowed, and no brokers open houses are allowed. And so what does that mean to you? As the seller, one of the biggest complaints I get from sellers is, if you have the open house, how many of those buyers are actually going to buy the property, right? And it's always a small percent. They say around 3 to 5% buyers that actually go to the open house will actually buy that home. But the other, 95 to 97% of the people that come through the house, who are they? Well, some obviously are serious buyers, but a lot of them are just looky-loos, right? If I'm traveling to Santa Barbara or San Diego, Orange County for the weekend, with my girlfriend, I'm gonna go look at open houses because I love houses, and obviously I'm in real estate, so that's normal. But even just average homeowners or just average people, they love to go look at properties in areas that they may not be able to afford, or maybe they can afford, but they're just looky-loos, right? They're just want to walk through the property and check it out and then just walk out. What are we doing instead of the traditional open houses? We're doing virtual open houses. What is that? That is scheduling a virtual live on either Facebook or Instagram or even LinkedIn, and we are promoting that with ads, like we would promote any open house, and then we would go to the property as if we were doing an open house. And we would just shoot the property, right? We would get our iPhone and we would just, look at the camera and walk around the property and talk about it. And, it's a live event, which means that people that are actually on there at the same time that I'm there at the property, they can ask me questions, right? If they want to go look at the bathroom some more, or they want to open some drawers, or go in the garage, or go to the backyard and get a different vantage point of the yard, I can do that while I'm there. So that's a great alternative of the traditional open house. And obviously it's great for the buyer to go and look at these properties virtually from the comfort of their own home, right? So instead of buyers wasting 2 or 3 hours going to open houses and not finding anything, they can just be at home, look at the property on their phone or on the computer, and they can make a decision at that point if they like the property and if they want to schedule a private showing. So what does this all mean? This means that the only buyers that are looking right now are serious buyers. Before COVID-19, in a traditional market, you would have all kinds of buyers, right? But right now, the only buyers looking are the focused buyers. They're serious buyers. They know that rates are really, really low, and they want to take advantage of that. So that's another great thing of putting your house on the market, is that you're only going to be dealing with buyers that are pre-qualified and that are serious about buying in your area. What are we doing to minimize the amount of showings? Is that we're doing virtual showings first, right? So if a seller says, hey, I want you to do virtual showings first before you show it to a buyer, I'm more than happy to do that. And so that's what we're doing now to make sure that there's less exposure and there's less people through the house. So if I have a call from an agent, saying that his client wants to go take a look at my property, I say, hey, before we show it to them, in a traditional viewing, where they come to the house and take a look at the house, we'll do a Zoom call or a go-to meeting, right? We'll do a virtual call where, again, I'll have my phone and I'll walk around the property, showing the buyer and the agent, through my phone and my phone's camera, the actual house. So they can, again, tell me if they want me to go to the bathroom again or upstairs, they want to see the view, all that stuff. Once they see the house virtually, at that point, they can decide if they want to see it, in person. So that's going to eliminate a lot of the buyers looking inside the house, is by doing the virtual showings first. So then I'm the only one at the house, and then if they want to see it after that, then we'll bring the buyers in. What are we doing to make sure that we're taking all the precautions? Well, first of all, we have to make sure that the buyers who are coming are from the same household, right? So we actually can't be showing, a buyer from one household and a buyer from a different household the actual property. So they have to come from the same household. If they're from 2 different households, like if they're investors, we cannot show it to them at the same time. One has to go in, and then once that person finishes, then the other person comes in and takes a look at the property. There's only allowed 2 people in the property, 2 buyers at the property, including their agent and me. So there's 4 people total in the property at any given time. Before I forget, I wanted to show you the virtual open house. I just remembered to show this to you guys. So this is an example of an open house I did for my listing on 709 North Bedford in Beverly Hills. You can see that I had my selfie stick here with me, and I just walked around the property. I'm right in front of the street right here, showing the people on Facebook Live the street view and all the surrounding houses. Let me log back on here. So that would be what we would do, right? We would do the virtual open house on Facebook Live or Instagram. Okay, know the facts. The reason why I'm doing this webinar is because I talk to probably 5 to 6 brand new sellers every single day. Not brand new, expired sellers. So sellers that have had their house on the market and they took it off during the coronavirus. I call those sellers and I ask if they're still interested in selling. A lot of them don't want to put their house back on the market right now. A lot of them want to wait. A lot of them think there's, the houses aren't selling right now, so it's a waste of time. I don't want to keep my house on the market. I don't want to, have that days on market go up and up, right? But the fact is that houses are selling, and I'll show you some stats here at the end of our webinar. What we know right now is that we are at historical all-time highs in terms of prices, right? We've never seen prices gone up this high in the history of the United States. So we don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't have a crystal ball. You don't have a crystal ball. What we know now is that prices are great, interest rates are low, and there's less inventory. Realtor.com actually posted a blog about how the median home price in all of the United States went up last week compared to last year. And again, talking about supply and demand, there's less supply, and the demand, even though it's a little bit less than it was before the coronavirus, the demand is still higher than the supply. So that's going to drive prices up. All right, let's talk about the cons about putting your house on the market. The obvious one is the risk of exposure, right? And we take this very seriously. A lot of the sellers in Los Angeles, can be baby boomers, and so they're higher risk individuals for the coronavirus. And again, if they want to put their house on the market, then they have to kind of analyze, what those risks are. And I get that, right? So if a client comes to me and says, I need to sell my house, but I don't want to be exposed to the coronavirus, I have to, I have to understand that, but also I have to let them know what we're doing to minimize that risk, right? Because every buyer has to wear a mask. They have to bring the gloves. If they don't have them, the agent should have that. If I'm showing one of my listings, I make sure to bring extra masks and extra gloves as well, and Purell if they don't have gloves or whatnot. And we're not allowing any of the buyers to touch anything, right? So I get to the house early with Maggie and we open up the house, right? We open up all the doors, all the windows, we let all the fresh air come in, and we let the buyers in. After the showing, once the buyers leave, we air out the house, for at least 10 to 20 minutes, right? So that's going to minimize the risk. We're also going to clean any surfaces that were touched. Obviously, we would like the buyers not to touch anything, but we're not policemen, so we can't control that. But these are the things that we're doing to minimize the risk of exposure. But this is obviously the most important one, and the reason why a lot of the sellers out there aren't selling. All right, let's go to the next one. And guys, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. We have Maggie, who's going to be answering any of your questions. And if you want any more information, drop your email there, and I'll shoot you an email, and then we can have a discussion about the pros and cons of selling either today or after the coronavirus. Okay, we spoke about this earlier, and I said it was a pro, right? The fact that we can't do a traditional open house because there's no looky-loos and whatnot. But it's also a con, right? Because this is a traditional marketing method for selling real estate, is having the doors open and letting people come see the property, right? Sometimes looky-loos can be the buyer. You know, most of them aren't, right? I would say about 95 to 99% of them aren't real buyers, but that 1% can be driving by Sunset Boulevard and they see your sign, they go take a look at the property, and they fall in love with the house and they end up buying the property. This actually happens a lot. It's happened to me, and it's happened to agents at my office where they randomly find a buyer that is going to put an offer on their listing just because they had it open on a Sunday and the buyer came and they fell in love with it. So that's a real chance. So that's definitely a con, is that we don't have those methods anymore. And you know, talking to a lot of experts out there, they're saying that we might not have open houses for the rest of the year. So that's why we're doing things virtually. And the other thing is it's brokers opens. This is our way as agents to introduce a property to the agent community, right? So we invite agents from all the different brokerages to come take a look at the property on a Tuesday in between 11 and 2, at least here in Los Angeles. I know that in Malibu it's different days and times, but every week, every area in Los Angeles has their broker open times. And why is that important? Well, you know, almost, I would say 90 to 95% of buyers out there have an agent that's helping them look, right? So if I have a buyer looking in Beverly Hills in a certain area in a certain price range, and there's a brand new listing and there's a broker's open, you sure know that I'm going to be at that property looking at that house for my client. So that is not available to us right now, and that's definitely going to be hurting the seller in terms of, you know, getting more exposure for your house. The other thing is, if your property is a tear down, it's a development opportunity, it's a fixer, you know, it needs a lot of work, or there's, you know, potential for building more units on your property, developers are looking for deep discounts. Okay, I work with plenty of developers, and they're still looking, but they're not going to be buying at market value anymore like they were in the past. You know, they know that the future is uncertain, and so what they're doing is that they're waiting for that right opportunity. They're looking for that hungry seller, the seller that has to sell right now. So you know, that's for sure going to be, you know, hurting some of the sellers out there that are you know, selling to these investors or developers. Those kind of buyers are looking for deep discounts. Now let's shift gears and let's talk about the pros and cons of waiting until after COVID finishes. And the most obvious one is that there's going to be less risk of exposure. You know, we don't know how long this is going to take. It could take 6 months or a year, 2 or 3. I don't know. You know, some experts say a year, some say 2 or 3. So, you know, once this is all over, there's going to be much less risk of exposure. And that's obviously, you know, the biggest benefit of waiting. The other benefit is that there's going to be more buyers in the market. Right now, like I said earlier, there's less buyers in the market because they've either lost their job or their business isn't doing well, right? There's a ton of businesses in the entertainment industry, in multiple industries that are hurting severely right now. So a lot of those people, those business owners, those employees, the CEOs, the CFOs, you know, they're taking huge pay cuts, or they're getting furloughed, or they're getting laid off, or the business went out of business. You know, that's happening a lot. So once this is all over, we'll start seeing some more buyers, hopefully, and that will definitely help. And there'll be more money in the mortgage market, obviously. Right now, a lot of the lenders out there are freezing a lot of the loan options, or they're only giving out loans to the best pre-qualified buyers, right? The W-2 buyers, the buyers that are self-employed like myself, or business owners. That's a little bit of a riskier loan for a lender, so you might not get the same loan, or that loan may not be available for you anymore. So that's why it's important, if you're a buyer, to talk to a mortgage broker and find out. But for sure, once this all ends, there's going to be more money in the mortgage market, and more available money for those buyers. And the last benefit of waiting until after this coronavirus ends is that we can do open houses. Again, Sunday open houses and brokers opens are super important in exposing your house to the buyer community and the agent community as well. What are the cons of waiting until coronavirus ends? Well, rates are likely to go up. So the buying power for the buyers is likely to go down. Rates again are at all-time lows, and it's only a matter of time until those rates go up, right? I don't see these rates going much lower than they are right now. They've never been this low ever. So if they do go up, it's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. And at that point, once the coronavirus ends, we might be seeing rates as high as 4% or 5%. I don't know. Or maybe the rates stay the same. That's a possibility as well. I don't know that. Obviously it's a risk to wait because the buying power is less for the buyers out there. The other big con of waiting until this ends is that everybody's going to be putting their house on the market, right? They're not going to feel that they're going to get exposed to the virus. So it's going to be a huge rush of new listings that are going to be hitting the market. And what does that mean? That's going to mean more competition, right? So if your area, again, has usually 10 houses on the market at any given time, we're probably going to see about 15 or 20 because we're seeing all that inventory that didn't come on the market over the last 2 months is going to just flood the market. So that usually brings prices down. It's hard to say right now because Los Angeles is such a strong market, but depending on your area, that could mean that prices either are going to level off or they're going to come down. The other big issue of waiting is that forbearance is going to be at the end, right? So the buyers that are in forbearance right now, it's going to be either 2 to 3 months. Once that forbearance ends for these buyers, for these homeowners, once that forbearance ends for the homeowners, they may not have a job. Their business might be really slow, or they may be out of business. So they might have to just sell their house, right? So there's plenty of equity in the market. So I'm not sure if we'll see a ton of foreclosures, at least here in Los Angeles, but there's going to be even more sellers on the market. That homeowner that wasn't a seller before coronavirus might have to be a seller after the coronavirus because they just don't have the money to make the big payments, right? So that's definitely one of the biggest cons of waiting after the coronavirus. And the other question is, how long are you willing to wait? I don't know what that number is for you, and I don't know how long this is going to take, right? Again, we've talked about in between 6 months to about 2 or 3 years, and waiting for the future is going to be a gamble, right? We know what we know right now, and what we know is that there's less inventory, rates are really good, and there's people buying out there, right? So if you ask me if you should wait or not, I would say I think it's a good idea to put your house on the market now, as long as you're okay with the small risk of getting exposure, right? It's a calculated risk. I'm going to give you an example of how many buyers are out in the market right now. This is my listing on 709 North Bedford in Beverly Hills that I put on the market about a month and a half ago. I put it on the market as an off-market property just after the shutdown. I think it was like March 19th or 20th. So it was like 4 or 5 days after the shutdown. And I sent out an email blast to the agent community. I got 18 offers in 24 hours. They actually wrote a story about this on the LA Times that you can read about. And this is just a great example that there's a lot of buyers out there. This was a development opportunity in the flats of Beverly Hills, and there's a lot of investors, developers that would like to tear down this house and build something new, and there's also end users as well. So at the end of the listing, I ended up getting 22 offers. We ended up selling it 2 weeks ago for 6.75. So we are seeing a lot of buyers out there, and they are pulling the trigger on buying property. And last but not least, guys, I just wanted to show you some facts because I can sit here and tell you that houses are selling all day, but without showing you the facts, you know, you may not believe me. So right here on the left, again, this is from Mike Del Prete. This is pending sales in Los Angeles over the course of this year, right? So if you look at the left, you're seeing that there's around 600 properties that were in escrow at any given time in Los Angeles, and that went up at the peak of on March the 1st, up to close to 1,000 houses that were under contract. Obviously, that went down tremendously during the shutdown, right? It went back down to a little bit under 600, and now that's kind of gone back up. It's still hovering around that like January, early February number, but we are still seeing houses selling. On the right, this is an app called Showing Time. It's through the MLS. It's through the system that we use as agents to look for properties on the market. And this application is for us to schedule showings for our clients. So Showing Time is tracking the amount of showings being scheduled across the United States. If you look here at this darker line, I think it's a black line on your screen, you're seeing that it was around plus 40%, and that was last year. And this year, you can see here there's a huge dip of about 60%, and now we're right about the same as last year in terms of scheduled showings. So again, guys, if you have any questions about this webinar, please let me know. I'm always available to help you guys. And you know, the only reason why I did this is to help you guys and educate you guys on what's going on in the market by showing you facts, right? By showing you what is happening. It was nice to see you guys, and I look forward to seeing